Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Spirit of Prophecy podcast. I appreciate you joining me another week. Thank you so much for all the likes, the shares, and helping get the word out. It is great to see the channel grow, and we hope to see it continue to grow so we can just get the truth out there. And appreciate a lot of the suggestions that I put out a post about who you would like for guests. Some great ideas on there. Been crazy busy lately. Just took a trip to Philadelphia and was gone for a few days, and a lot's been going on, so I haven't had a chance to do any reaching out or anything, but I am planning on looking into trying to get some of those people on the program. Keep giving the suggestions out there, and I appreciate just people send videos and just different articles and things that gives me good ideas of stuff that we could talk about, respond to, talk about how to just better explain what we believe. So appreciate all the interaction. It really is good, and it's very encouraging. And so today, what I want to spend today talking about, not so much a biblical subject, but really more of a political current event type thing that I think is very important. We are seeing a lot of insanity going on in our country right now over all the protests and things that are taking place, especially on college campuses, where we are seeing these left-wing, libtard, nut job, scumbag, good-for-nothings that are out there trashing Israel, being anti-Semitic, and the crazy is off the charts. And so conservative people, Baptist people are seeing all this and are thinking, well, wait a minute, we're supposed to be opposite of the libtards that are out there, and the libtards are all pro-Palestinian and they all hate Israel. And, the right-wingers, the Republicans, the John Hagees and the Robert Jeffers, they're all pro-Israel. Just all the Republicans that we're supposed to like, they're all saying positive things about Israel. And so what about these, so it scares people away from people like myself who is against Zionism. And so it's like, are you aligning yourself with the libtards? Are you aligning yourselves with the Democrats and the AOCs and the Omar lady or whatever? And I've been accused of that before. But one of the things that I'm going to try to show you is that one, the amount of ignorance on both sides when it comes to this subject is off the charts. And let me tell you, Baptists, you are no exception. The amount of ignorance you have towards these issues is astounding. And of course, when it comes to the protesters, they are the most ignorant of all. And, and we all know, we are all well aware of the fact that many of the people leading these protests, being crazy, doing the agitating, are paid protesters, George Soros funded. We all know that. And don't get me wrong, I do believe, I've listened to the interviews, many people that are the pro-Palestinian, anti-genocide, they just, hate all the killing of civilians and stuff that's going on. There's a lot of just anti-war, pacifist type people out there that are trying to just draw attention to the suffering of the innocents that's out there. And I'm not trying to accuse them of being nut jobs, but many of the protesters are nut jobs, but they're paid to be that way. These are the same people that were doing the Black Lives Matter protests, going nuts and burning things down and starting riots. We can't get rid of these people. So again, not everyone on the pro-Palestinian side of the protests are the crazies. And not all of them are completely ignorant. A lot of them are. But same thing too, on the right wing, there's just, the ignorance is off the charts. And I do want to show one example of just ignorance of epic proportions. This is a guy who I had on the podcast one time who likes to accuse me of being anti-Semitic. And this guy, his ignorance is off the charts. And that is Peter Cratafilo. This guy is just he is an echo. He's one of the echoes in an echo chamber. He does not know anything. He repeats Republican talking points from certain groups. But, he posts something about the protests that are getting violent, getting out of control. Obviously, that's wrong. But he said, time to send in the National Guard. This isn't a protest anymore. It's a riot out of control. I agree. But then he states something true, and then he says this stupidity. He says, lastly, anti-Zionism is just anti-Semitism. And that is a foolish, ridiculous statement. That is just ignorance. Nikki Haley was saying that very thing a lot, and Peter seemed like he was supportive of her, sharing a lot of her stuff. But is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism? What is Zionism? It's amazing how many pro-Israel Baptists, they don't even really understand what Zionism is. They don't really know much about it. They know they're for the Jews. They're God's chosen people, but they don't know if they should call themselves a Zionist or not. Some do. Some Baptists are out there and they call themselves Zionists. They embrace that term. There are many dispensational Baptists who would consider themselves, they don't believe God is done with Israel. They might even say the Jews are God's still chosen people, but they don't know if they would go as far as saying that they are Zionists. They stop short of that. Okay, and people on my side, let's not accuse everyone who believes that Israel still plays a major role in eschatology and God's not done with them. Don't accuse them of being Zionists. You are also showing your ignorance. So hopefully on this particular podcast, I can educate you a little bit on what Zionism is, what anti-Semitism is. And so we're going to look at a few different articles and just show you the danger of what's happening right now. Okay, nut jobs that nobody wants to be associated with are basically giving the Zionists what they need, and that is sympathy. It's giving them sympathy, and in our country, when you get sympathy, you end up getting power, and does not help the cause. We do not need to be given the Zionists sympathy. I believe the Zionist agenda is a very bad agenda. But at the same time, that does not make me anti-Semitic. And let me just say this. If I'm anti-Semitic because of my stand against Zionism, an awful large percentage of Jews are also anti-Semitic. I don't know what the numbers are, but there is a large percentage of Jews who are anti-Zionist. So if I'm anti-Semitic because of that, okay, then we need to start creaming a lot of Jews for being anti-Semitic. And if we're going to pass laws against anti-Semitism, the first people we need to go after are a lot of Jews that are out there. So let's go ahead and look at this one article. This is from the American Jewish Committee. It's called What is Anti-Zionism? It says Anti-Zionism and Anti-Semitism. I want to make sure people know I'm using their words and not just, coming up with a bunch of straw men. So what is anti-Zionism? Zionism is derived from the word Zion, referring to the biblical land of Israel. In the late 19th century, Zionism emerged as a political movement to reestablish a Jewish state in Israel, the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. Today, Zionism refers to support for the continued existence of Israel in the face of regular calls for its destruction or dissolution. Anti-Zionism is opposition to Jews having a Jewish state in their ancestral homeland and denies the Jewish people's right to self-determination. Now, I want you to notice a few things about this that are very misleading and are very deceptive. So first off, again, Zionism started in the late 19th century. The reason many people are so against Zionism is because of the fact that while there have been major battles that have been fought throughout the land of Israel over the last 2,000 years, for the most part, there was things were relatively peaceful amongst the Jews and the Palestinians. And I did a whole program with an Orthodox Jew who is against Zionism I would encourage people to go back and watch that. And he explained a lot of the history. And so what happened was when the Jews were the minority, things were relatively peaceful. And obviously things were not that great for the Jews as the minority. And so when Zionism became a big thing and the status quo started changing, the landscape started changing, as Jews gained power and Palestinians started losing power, obviously that upset the status quo. That upset the Palestinians. And so the truth is the Palestinians, they weren't like anti-Jew because they were getting along with the Jews fine as things were. But they were anti-Zionist in the sense that they didn't want their situation changing. And as the situation changed in a negative way for them, they didn't like it at all as they got all the power. So that's the same thing we have going on in America too. America at one time was a very Christian nation. We have slowly been losing that. And obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so we have a lot of Christian nationalism being talked about. We're supposed to be a Christian nation, but we've got all this secular ideology that's coming in and growing. And so now, a lot of Christians aren't liking the changes that are going on. And so things are getting stirred up and hostility is growing. And so there's always going to be that fight. Are we a Christian nation? Are we not? Are we a secular nation? And people are going to argue these things. And at some point, if the secular crowd grows and continues to get their way, there could come a point where the Christian crowd's like, we've had enough of this, and there could be a revolution. We don't know. But things are always shaky politically when you have a lot of different beliefs living amongst each other. And so there was a drastic change in the late 1800s, because of Zionism and the effort to get Jews to move back into their land. So again, this isn't about being anti-Jewish, okay, or just like hating Jews. It's just we don't want things to change in our country. It would be like if all of a sudden a bunch of North Koreans started moving over here, but then wanting to change our country and its laws to be like North Korea. Well, we don't hate North Koreans, but we don't like that country. We don't like their way of life. We don't like their government. And so if that started growing over here, a lot of Americans might start throwing a hissy fit, which would get us accused of just being racist and against Korean people. You just hate them because they look different. No, we don't like their form of government. Muslims, if they come over here, okay, are we against Arabic people living in this country? Well, I don't think too many people would say. I'm sure there's some racists out there, but here's the thing I will say: I don't want Sharia law over here. I don't want their laws being implemented over here. We're America. We are a republic. We have a constitution, and we like it. And so the thing is, if a bunch of Muslim people start moving over here and start changing our laws and our country into being more like a Middle Eastern country, a lot of people are going to freak out. Doesn't mean we're racist. Okay? This is opposing political ideologies. And that's what we're seeing go on in Israel. The political landscape has changed a lot in the last 100 years, and people aren't responding well to it. And that would happen in any country. But they want to make it exclusively a racial thing. Man, you hate them because of the color of their skin. No, that's not what it's about. And so notice in this section too, it says, and it has it highlighted, anti-Zionism is in opposition to Jews having a Jewish state. Well, wait a minute. Okay. I don't think, again, I don't have a problem with Jews having a Jewish state. I don't have a problem with Muslims having a Muslim state. In fact, as a Christian who wants to live in a Christian nation with Christian type laws, I would prefer that all other groups have their own state. I would prefer that they all go to their own country. I mean, I would love that. The problem is, it would be great if just, for example, okay, I would be for the sodomite community having their own state somewhere. I mean, I would prefer they all go there and stay there forever and do whatever. And maybe we'll have a repeat of Genesis. But anyway, we won't go into that. But again, because then, I'm tired of them trying to integrate their filth into this country. I don't want that. I don't want to live around that. So I am for all people having their own state. The problem is, where are they going to go? Right? Where are they going to go? Are they going to have to? Are they going to go take over an undeveloped area and build a civilization? Hey, that'd be great. I'd be for that. But the problem with Zionism is the Jews, when they decided they wanted their own state, they went to a place that had been Palestine for 1800 years. And so obviously the Palestinians aren't going to like that. Okay? And so it would be like if the Sodomites, we decided we want our community to be the state of Illinois. Well, I'm going to oppose that, and if they succeed, then I would get out. But at the same time, you can't fault people for opposing these things. So the problem was the Jews chose Palestine. And so, of course, the Palestinians aren't going to like that. And their claim for Palestine was it was their ancestral homeland, which I would agree that was the case. But it's not going to matter to the Palestinians. It would be like if all of a sudden all of the Native Americans are like, you know what? We're turning this country back into how it was before all the white people came over here. Well, yeah, this is their ancestral homeland. There's no doubt about it. I mean, just across the river over in Mississippi Park are the Indian burial grounds. They have the mounds. I forgot what they call them. That's right here. This was Indian territory. This was Native American, territory. But, the Sterling Rock Falls community, a town was set up here years ago. Lives have been built. This area has been developed. We've done all this work in this area. I own a house. I have property. So do I just have to give it up because your ancestors lived here? Do you see how when you put the shoe on the other foot, it changes? And so if all of a sudden I'm like, no, I think I have claim to this area because now I've only lived on my property for 11 years, but I think it's my property. I think I have certain right to it. I don't think Indians have lived on my property in probably over 100 years. So if all of a sudden they want to take my land that I think is my land, even though it was their ancestors, I'm going to have a problem with it. And it doesn't mean I'm just a bigot and a racist and I hate Indians. That has nothing to do with it. And so that's the thing with anti-Zionism. The Jews, it's not that we're just like, well, I don't want the Jews to have a state. Well, no, I understand that it's the Palestinians are going to have a problem with it, and I'm being told I have to pick a side. Well, I don't have to pick a side. My problem with it is that Christians are supportive because they think that this is like this fulfillment of prophecy in a good way and that they have a claim based on their ethnicity because of God's promise to Abraham. And I'm not going to get into the theological implications of that, but I've done a lot on that. That is bad theology that supports ethnic Jews going back and reclaiming that land when they are in a state of unbelief and they are still rejecting the Messiah. That's bad theology. So my biggest problem with Zionism is the bad theology that goes with it. I don't care that the Jews have bad theology. I do care when Christians have bad theology, and I really care when Christians try to influence politicians, in the name of theology and the Bible to push something that's just foolish and wrong. So So this article, it's not giving you all the information. I don't think anyone is opposed to the Jews having a Jewish state. But again, if the Jews came and decided we want America as a Jewish state, well, whoa. A lot of people are going to freak out. Does not mean we're racist. I mean, but we don't want that. We don't believe there is any call for there to be one. And so the reason that people think it's legitimate in Israel is because, yes, they did occupy that land at one time. It was a land that belonged to the Jews. But remember, again, don't want to get into the theology of this too much. They were told by Moses, they were told by Israel the man to follow Shiloh, to follow that prophet like unto Moses. When they disobeyed the covenant, what makes you think they have claim to the covenant when they are in rebellion to the covenant? So it's dumb theology that says that land belongs to the Jews and the Palestinians need to get out. No, if the Palestinians need to get out, it's because they lost a hostile takeover and they don't want to keep fighting. Again, if the Sodomites took over Illinois, I would oppose it, but if they succeeded, I wouldn't hang out here and keep fighting. I'd get out, because, especially as a Christian, I can thrive anywhere. I can go somewhere else. And so, I personally wish the Jews would just say, let's follow Christ. We don't need this land. But I'd be fine too if the Muslims were like, you know what? It's not worth it. Let's get out of here. Let's just let them have it. I'm fine. Let the Jews have it. Let the Muslims have it. I don't care who gets it. I'll worry about that land when Jesus shows up. In the meantime, I don't care about that land. I do care when Baptists are acting like the Bible teaches that I should support them having the land. No, it doesn't. You are just wrong. And so I am not going to use Christianity and theology and the Bible to promote a takeover of a land. I think that's wrong. And so that's why I'm opposed to Zionism. It's not that I'm against Jews having a Jewish state. Again, and so the next part of the article I want to read, and hopefully this is all clear, but it says, how is anti-Zionism anti-Semitic? The belief that the Jews alone among people of the world do not have a right to self-determination, or that Jewish people's religious and historical connection to Israel is invalid, is inherently bigoted. Okay, so, all right, hold on a second. Okay, let's just calm down. Okay, the belief that Jews alone of the people of the world don't have a right to self-determination, again, I don't think anyone claims that. It was only in the late 1800s Zionism became a thing. And again, they decided they wanted to start a state in a land that already had a people. They called themselves a people without a land, going to a land without a people. Well, again, and let me tell you, Palestinians, they did not, they weren't, it's not like they were greatly civilized and had this great form of government and were thriving and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, there were people there and they didn't like it. And so it's just, obviously people are just like, no, I can understand why the Palestinians didn't just roll over like, I'm sorry, we trespassed on your property. We're getting out of here. I get that. But again, I'm fine with all the Jews having a land that they go to. But at the same time, the statement that they go on and say here that the Jewish people's religious and historical connection to Israel is invalid is bigoted. Why is that bigoted? Again, no, I don't believe, I do believe they have a connection to the land in the fact that, yes, it was a land that the Jews lived in. But I also theologically believe that Jesus brought in the new and better covenant. And I believe that Israel as a nation was destroyed as a part of the judgment of God, and they were scattered abroad the earth. So that's what my theology teaches. And I don't believe biblically they have claim to the land because they are in rejection of their Messiah. That's a religious difference. That's a theological difference. And so to say that that theology is bigoted, that's just foolish. Okay, it doesn't even make sense. And so it goes on to say, let me get it back up on here. When Jews are verbally or physically harassed, or Jewish institutions and houses of worship are vandalized in response to actions of the state of Israel, it is anti-Semitism. Well, that's a completely separate thing. Do you understand? That's a completely separate thing. Of course, we shouldn't be doing that. I don't believe in going and vandalizing synagogues and Jewish institutions and things like that, especially in response to what's going on over there in Israel. Okay, that is the actions of nut jobs, ignorant nut jobs. And I don't believe in doing that. I wouldn't do that. I've never done that. I would not encourage anyone to do that. And so it goes on to say, when criticisms of Israel use anti-Semitic ideas about Jewish power or greed, utilize Holocaust denial or inversion, claims that Israel are the new Nazis, or dabble in age-old xenophobic suspicion of the Jewish religion, otherwise legitimate critiques, cross the line into anti-Semitism, calling for a Palestinian nation state while simultaneously advocating for an end to the Jewish nation state is hypocritical at best and politically anti-Semitic. So again, this can get confusing because what they do, they throw things in there that are clearly wrong, but then they throw things in there too. They're like, wait a minute. This isn't the same category. This doesn't fit. Okay. Now, obviously, there are examples of Jews who do really bad things. Is it fair to credit all Jews for that sin? Obviously, that's not fair. Okay. But again, yeah, obviously stereotypes are not always fair, things like that. And we got to watch out for that kind of thing. We can't make all Jews responsible for Jeffrey Epstein. We can't make all Jews responsible for, some of the exceptionally bad ones that are out there. And sometimes people do that kind of thing. But at the same time, amongst many large Jewish institutions and groups and things like that, there are huge examples of these things. And so when this kind of thing is happening all the time, is it completely wrong for us to bring these things? I mean, these things up. We hear about white racism all the time. Well, how dare they say that? How racist against white people? Because not all white people are racist, and obviously I don't think even most are. But yet, they get away with saying that stuff all the time. And then again, it mentions too, calling for an end to the Jewish nation state. Hey, I'm not calling for an end to the Jewish nation state. I don't support the Jews wiping out the Palestinians. I don't support the Palestinians wiping out the Jews. I don't support what took place on October 7th. I condemn it. I also condemn a lot of the over-the-top reaction that has taken place since then, and a lot of just slaughter of civilians that I think has been very reckless. Okay? Maybe not so much on purpose, but reckless. It would be like if I just shot off a bomb. I don't know where it's going to go. I just shoot off a rocket and it lands and it kills a bunch of people. I wasn't targeting them. Oh yeah, but what you did, you knew that had the potential to do a lot of damage and potentially really hurt somebody. And it wasn't an accident, you setting off the rocket. And just because you didn't know exactly where it was going to land and who it was going to hit doesn't mean you're not responsible for what you did. And obviously Israel is doing a lot of things that they know is going to hurt innocent civilians. And so obviously people have a right to be upset with that. And there are people calling for their genocide. They're wrong. It's wrong on both sides. A lot of Christians calling for the genocide of Muslims, wanting them to turn Gaza into a parking lot and stuff. That's not right either. And so when it comes to me, I've got all these, Republican echoers out there in the name of Zionism, like demanding that I take a side, and if I don't support Israel slaughtering all the Palestinians, then I'm anti-Zionist and all that. No, I don't think we should be encouraging foolish land disputes and wars, especially in the name of Christianity and the Word of God. I think that is wrong. Absolutely, I think that's wrong. So let's now go ahead and go to the next section of this article. It says, is all criticism of Israel anti-Semitic? No. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. The IHRA definition, employed by governments around the world, explicitly notes that legitimate criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. Criticism of Israel, similar to that leveled against any other country, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. When anti-Zionists call for the end of the Jewish state, however, that is no longer criticism of policy, but rather anti-Semitism. Now, I challenge anyone out there, all right, Peter Cradafilo, who calls me anti-Semitic all the time, okay, I challenge anyone, and I have said a lot about Israel. Have I ever called for the end of the Jewish state? Can anybody find where I've ever done that? I have never done that. Again, like I've said before, I'd be fine if all the Jews went to Israel. Okay, I'd be for that, And so, but now, have I criticized Israel? Oh yeah. Have I criticized the government of Israel? You better believe I have. Have I been critical of their form of government and all those different things? Yes, I have. And I am against it. I'm not for it. I don't want to live in a Jewish state. I don't want that. I'm not for that. And so I will never try to move to Israel. But again, I have criticisms with how they've handled this war. I have criticism with how evangelism is illegal over there. I'm against that. I'm critical. You better believe I'm critical of that. But you know what? That's not anti-Semitism. That absolutely is not anti-Semitism. But I will, and I can. I criticize my own government. Does that mean I'm anti-America? No, I love America. I love my country. But I have to be critical of it because it's got a lot of problems. It's still, I think, the best country on earth. And it's heading in a terrible direction. And I will criticize it all day long. I will stand against a lot of the foolishness that's going on and that's being promoted in this country. But that doesn't mean I'm anti-America. No, it's because I'm pro-America that I stand against these things. And you want to know why one of the reasons I'm so critical of the government of Israel and the Jewish state? Because I think they should be allowed to be Christians and be citizens of that area. I think they should be allowed to evangelize. I want them to evangelize in Israel. You know why? Because I don't hate Jews. I want them to get saved and I want them to go to heaven. So, again, let me just say this again. I've said this in the past. I'll say it again. Anyone who calls me an anti-Semite is an ignorant liar and good for nothing. And because that is not what I am. And so that's all I'm going to read of that article. But when it comes to anti-Semitism, I do want to point out another thing too. Because anti-Semitism is it has a constantly changing definition, and this is what's very dangerous. Okay, because again, I do not want that label on me. I do not believe I deserve to have that label on me. And when I think of anti-Semitism, in fact, if you Google anti-Semitism, look what comes up. This is what anti-Semitism is. It is hostility to or prejudice against Jewish people. Okay? Hostility or prejudice against Jewish people. Now, first off, I am not hostile to Jews. I've never hurt a Jew. I don't want to hurt a Jew. Okay? I'm nice to Jews. And then prejudice against Jews. Now, does that mean? Because sometimes too, people get offended, like if you stereotype it all. But obviously, if someone is a Jew, there are certain things I'm going to expect from them because of their belief system, not because of their race, their belief system, that I would not be for. I often assume if somebody says I'm Jewish that they're against Christ. If they're against Christ, I got a problem with you because you're against Christ. So, but it's because of your belief system. It's because of your religion. But even then, I'm not going to hurt you, but I will oppose you doctrinally. I will oppose you in the spiritual battle. You know, they are enemies for the gospel's sake, but they're not my physical enemy. If I had a Jewish neighbor, I would not fight with them. I would not seek to get them removed from their property. Okay? But I will oppose them spiritually. You know, and so, but yeah, I don't have any hostility. And here's the thing too. If a Jew got saved, I would treat him no different than anyone else that got saved, because flesh and blood doesn't really matter. Okay? It's the religion. I have a problem with the religion, just like I have a problem with Catholicism and Islam and Mormons, okay? And the United Methodists and a lot of, and Calvinists and a lot of different groups. So, you know, it's not a racial thing. It absolutely is not a racial thing. And so I want to show you one more article, and because this is where it starts getting scary, though. Okay, this is because it's not fair that they get to keep changing the definition of anti-Semitism, because I don't believe any Jewish person should ever get hurt because they are a Jew. These college campuses where they're, you know, if they are and physically assaulting Jews, blocking them from going into their classes and things like that, of course, that is awful, you know, and it's pathetic that the police are allowing that kind of thing to happen. Anybody who would attack somebody or physically assault someone just because of their religion or race is nobody I want to be identified with. Absolutely not. But again, we do have a difference in an ideology, and it is dangerous when we cannot speak against another ideology. And the Zionist ideology, I believe, is very dangerous, and I believe it's hurting our country. It's certainly costing our country billions of dollars as we're giving them all this money to support their Zionist cause. I'm against that. I don't think we ought to be doing that. So let's look. So the thing is, on one hand, it's like, yeah, anti-Semitism is bad. We shouldn't be assaulting people, hurting people. You know, again, I don't think you should be able to legislate bad thoughts. To me, if somebody wants to just hate somebody because of their race or whatever, or religion, that's just a terrible person. But as long as it doesn't result in actions that are harmful, then I think I ought to leave them alone. You know, I don't think, I think people have the right to be bigots, you know, as long as they're not hurting other people. Okay. There's a lot of people out there that hate me. You know what I've never done? Called the police. Excuse me, officer, but I saw somebody online said some really nasty things about me. They said a whole bunch of bad words. They accused me of a bunch of bad, and it's because of my beliefs. Will you arrest them? Not unless they threaten me. Not unless they assault me. People should be allowed to hate me. And the government should do nothing about it. But let's look at this article on defining anti-Semitism. This is by the U.S. Department of State. The U.S. Department of State has used a working definition along with examples of anti-Semitism since 2010. So wait a minute. So again, 2010. You know, when it comes to certain words, I mean, are we required to just, you know, allow them? Again, we shouldn't be anti-Semitic, but if they're allowed to just change what that means, are we required to constantly change with the word? Because if they start including things in there that would nail us, do we now have to change that? Otherwise, we're guilty of all things associated with anti-Semitism. That's not fair. That is not right. And so this is talking about something from 2010. That's not that long ago, 14 years ago. On May 26th, 2016, the 31 member states of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, of which the United States is a member, adopted a non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism at its plenary in Bucharest. This definition is consistent with and builds upon the information contained in the 2010 State Department definition. As a member of IHRA, the United States now uses this working definition and has encouraged other governments and international organizations to use it as well. So this definition they came up with in 2016, they're demanding everyone accept this definition. So wait a minute. Shouldn't a word mean what the word means? Why is it that you have to try to push other governments into accepting this definition? Unless it's a bad definition. Unless it is misleading. Because here's the thing. They have succeeded in making anti-Semitism a bad thing. And of course, the dictionary definition, that's a bad thing. But they're broadening the meaning. They keep broadening it so we all get nailed. That's what they're doing. It's like racism. Racism is successfully been made into a bad word. But, now, if they just continue to broaden what that means to where, you have to like everything about another race or you're a racist. Because, yeah, we all do. We all think of racist as bad. And so the thing is, sometimes though, we're not being controlled as much as they think we should when it comes to certain things. So let's broaden the definition so we can cream them with that and shame them. And of course, nobody should hire a racist. Nobody should like a racist. They shouldn't be allowed on social media. But again, are they really racist? And so they're using these definitions and broadening them as a way to control. And so let's keep reading what this says. So it says, in the spirit of the Stockholm Declaration that states, with humanity still scarred by anti-Semitism and xenophobia, the international community shares a solemn responsibility to fight those evils. The Committee on Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Denial called the IHRA plenary in Budapest in 2015 to adopt the following working definition of anti-Semitism. On May 2016, the plenary in Bucharest decided to adopt the following non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism. And I wonder if they want it non-legally binding so they can keep changing it. Because again, if you don't fully support Israel's response to the October 7th attack, you're an anti-Semite. Because that's what they're trying to do right now. So they do. They have a working definition. So, which means we all, in reality, what they're trying to do, they're trying to make it so if you don't support everything Israel's government is doing from day to day, you're an anti-Semite. So you might support it today, but if they make a decision tomorrow that you disagree with, you're going to be anti-Semitic. That's what they're doing with this here. This is crazy stuff, folks. This is crazy. And to think that Baptists are out there calling other people anti-Semites, it shows either a high level of evil or just ignorance of epic proportions, which is probably the case with guys like Peter Crodofilo. So, it says anti-Semitism is a certain perspective of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individual and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. To guide the IHRA in its work, the following examples may serve as illustrations. Manifestations might include the targeting of the state of Israel, conceived as a Jewish collectivity. However, criticism of Israel similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism frequently charges Jews with conspiring to harm humanity, and it is often used to blame Jews for why things go wrong. It is expressed in speech, writing, visual forms, and action, and employs sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in religious spheres, could, taking into account the overall context, include, but are not limited to, and now it's about to give a bunch of examples. So Again, a lot of that stuff it was saying there. I mean, yeah, we don't want to do these things. We don't want to harm Jews. We don't want to attack them. We don't want to blame all Jews for everything that a Jew does. And obviously, too, when it comes to what's going on in Israel, again, most Jews have no interest in moving back to Israel. Most Jews, I would say most Jews probably aren't even Zionist. They're not interested in that. They're fine. Hey, yeah, that's great. We've got a Jewish state over in Israel. I'll go visit there sometime, but I don't want to live there. They're fine living in America. So let's look at, though, because again, they don't want to give a legal definition of anti-Semitism, but they do want to make laws against anti-Semitism, and then they want to give examples, which again, they can always add to. They can always broaden it if they need to. And so some of these things they're going to mention, again, people shouldn't be allowed to do that. We can have laws against that. But I wouldn't say these are laws against anti-Semitism. It's just laws against assault. It's laws against destruction of private property. We already have laws against these things. So a lot of this is completely unnecessary. Okay. Again, there is no need to pass laws against anti-Semitism. We have basic human rights. We have laws that help preserve those human rights. And if we enforce those, it will take care of the things that are actually wrong that are mentioned in this definition of anti-Semitism. It's the things but there are some things that are going to be included in here. This is very dangerous stuff. And again, at some point, we're all going to be, at some point, and it's already basically there. We're going to see this where you can't be Christian and not be anti-Semitic. That's not fair. That is not fair. We should be allowed to have a different religious ideology without the anti-Semitic label, but they are broadening it so much that yes, if you are a Christian, if you believe your Bible, you're anti-Semitic. And so let's look at some of this. It says, calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. Okay, now, I think that's terrible to do that. Okay, I don't think we ought to be encouraging violence anywhere. And so, this is definitely wrong. We don't need to be doing this kind of thing. Is somebody saying things like, I hope they all die? Should we lock them up for something like that? Obviously, that's a terrible person. But I think their words have to actually be causing physical harm before we actually do anything about it. Okay. And so another thing it says, making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews, such or the power of Jews as collective, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, and other societal institutions. And so it's like, and here, this is the funny thing. If you go back and you watch my interview with Cradafilo, he was trying to prove I was anti-Semitic. And so he's like, have you ever said that, Jews control the media? And he mentioned several things. And I said, yes. And he's like, well, you're anti-Semitic. And I was like, but the Jews do own all those things. And he's like, and then I'm like, I'm just stating a fact. And he's like, yeah, but you're saying it like it's a bad thing. No, I'm just stating it as a fact. That's what I'm saying. I'm pointing out that, hey, maybe we're seeing a certain agenda from the news media, from the TV stations, because all these stations seem to have a very similar religious ideology and political ideology. And so obviously being Jewish affects your thinking, just as being Christian affects your thinking. And so when we're seeing all the same kind of thinking come from a certain, organization, and then you find out that it is run primarily by Jewish people, people are going to make that connection. And so we're not allowed to just state facts. And it's literally stating facts about Jews is anti-Semitic, because you're saying it in a negative way. Because then he turned around and basically acknowledged it. But because I think it's bad, I'm anti-Semitic. Hey, I'm not saying they don't have a right to buy these things. I'm not saying, we should stop them and take these things away and let the Christians have it. No, I'm just stating the fact that maybe this is why we're seeing this certain agenda being pushed. Look at who owns all these things. So, yeah, not even just religious. Your religion's going to make you anti-Semitic. Stating facts is going to make you anti-Semitic. We have to literally deny reality to avoid this label. That's not fair. So it says accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. And so, yeah, we shouldn't blame the Jews for everything. Obviously, if it's just something one Jew did, we shouldn't blame all Jews. We shouldn't blame all Jews for what Jeffrey Epstein did. We shouldn't blame all Jews for, George Soros or whatever. And we could go on with a list of names. Yeah, that's not fair. We shouldn't. It's not completely fair when you do that kind of thing. So let's read a little bit more. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, example, gas chambers, or intentionally of the genocide of Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, the Holocaust. Now, why is it anti-Semitic to question something about history? Again, we have people who question things about 9/11 and the JFK assassination. And so are we not allowed? I mean, we have so many reasons to doubt the government. We have so many reasons to doubt the news media. We have so many reasons to doubt many things that the scientists are saying because of what they're saying about climate change that's politically motivated, because of the evolution religion being shoved down our throats. And so the thing is, while I do not deny the Holocaust, I don't have any good reason to deny the Holocaust. I don't deny it. But at the same time, isn't it interesting how the Holocaust is always being used as justification for everything with the Jews? In fact, that was what ultimately got Israel to become a nation. There was so much sympathy for the Jews after the horrors of the Holocaust that people supported them becoming a nation. And they had been trying for a very long time. But America, especially, they made the biggest difference. They got behind it in 1947-48 because of the Holocaust. And so in the political world, often they will exploit a crisis in order to advance a political agenda, and sometimes they'll make one up. I'm not saying they did it in this case, but they have done that many, 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 many times. And so if there's people out there who just doubt these things, question these things, and even deny these things, you can't put something as ugly as an anti-Semitic label on them. You can call them a conspiracy theorist. You can call them ignorant if you want. You can call them wrong, but you can't call them anti-Semitic. That's foolish to do that. And even though I am not a Holocaust denier, I would never call someone anti-Semitic if they genuinely, sincerely did not believe that happened, or at least happened in the way that they say it did. That's just being unfair. And so it would be like calling someone a racist. I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to say this. But let's say some guy, some single guy is just like, I'm not attracted to other races. I want to marry somebody white. And therefore he's a racist because of that. Well, no, I mean, people have a right to have a preference on something. It doesn't make them a racist. And so are you really going to put that ugly of a label on somebody just because of a personal preference that he has? That's not fair. So let's read a little bit more. It says, accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Already discussed that. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of the Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nation. Okay. I would accuse a lot of Republicans of that. I would accuse a lot of Christians of that. When Christians are supporting us giving billions of dollars to Israel, they are putting the nation of Israel above their own nation, especially when they're doing it in the name of Zionism and blessing Israel according to the Bible. I got a huge problem with that. Okay. Now, I can't stop people from liking that and being that way, nor should we. But I don't have to like it. I don't like it when our politicians sell out our country for another country. I've got a problem with that. And I don't like when people vote, against the interests of America and in the interests of another nation. I don't like that. And, but it doesn't make you anti-Semitic. We should be allowed to have a problem with that. So the next thing it says, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming the existence of the state of Israel as a racist endeavor. And I've already talked about that. But then applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded by any other democratic nation. Now, I don't know an example of how that's done. I definitely don't think I've ever done anything like that. But using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, as claims of the Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis. So notice, too, the claims of the Jews killing Jesus. We're not allowed to bring that up. Do you realize they just made part of our Bible illegal if anti-Semitism is illegal? And again, we can't back down from this, okay? Let me just read a text that many people would like, and I think a lot of Christians would like to make illegal. It says in 1 Thessalonians 2:14, "For ye, brethren, became followers of the churches of God, which in Judea are in Christ Jesus. For ye also have suffered like things of your own countrymen, even as they have of the Jews." Was it all Jews? I'm just reading what Paul said. Who both killed the Lord Jesus. All Jews didn't kill it. I'm just reading what Paul said. Who both killed the Lord Jesus and their own prophets and have persecuted us. And they please not God and are contrary to all men. Forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill up their sins always, for the wrath is come upon them to the uttermost. That, my friends, is anti-Semitic, according to these people. That is ridiculous. But then it goes on, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of Nazis. They can accuse everyone of being Nazis all the time, but somebody does it to them, anti-Semitic. And then holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the state of Israel. And let me just say, I do not hold Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the state of Israel. I hold Zionist Jews responsible because most Jews aren't Zionists. Most Jews don't want to move to Israel. Most Jews don't care about taking over that land. So of course we wouldn't hold all of them responsible for that, but it's the Zionist ones. Okay? I do not hate Jews, nor should we hate Jews as a race. I believe we can hate their religion. It's Antichrist. We for sure, just like we hate Catholicism, we hate every false way. But at the same time, our hatred for their false teaching should never result in physical harm, any kind of assaulting of them, damaging their property, anything like it. It shouldn't involve all that. But at the same time, the way they're pushing things now, if we don't support their attacks right now, if we don't support everything they're doing, anti-Semitic. And anti-Semitism should be illegal. And then what are they doing right now? They're showing a bunch of crazy, agitated people doing bad stuff to Jews, chanting horrible things to Jews, and anti-Semitic protests, anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is becoming more and more of a bad word. And of course, this behavior that we're seeing growing in America right now is bad behavior. But then at the same time, They're broadening the definition of anti-Semitism to the point where if you can just read a passage of scripture and they'll call that anti-Semitic. Pretty soon, believing Jesus was the Messiah is going to be considered anti-Semitic because it's offensive to the Jews. But folks, it's the truth. And the time is coming where Antichrist is going to come. And we are all going to be forced to bow the knee, to take his mark, to worship his image. And I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to wait to stand against this when they're implementing a mark. I'm not going to wait. Messiah already came. His name's Jesus Christ. We are going to express truth. We are not going to be violent. We're not going to hate people because of their race or anything, or religion or anything like that. But we are going to oppose the teaching. We're going to stand against these things, and we're not going to support their government when they do things that are wrong. And so stop falling for all this stuff that you're being manipulated with in the news media, and don't let people think that because, or associate you with paid protesters, with paid agitators that are trying to get attention right now, trying to, again, cause sympathy for Israel. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful thing, and it is working, but I'm not falling for it. And let me tell you, and so again, I am against Zionism, but I am not anti-Semitic. And anyone who I am not in the sense of I don't have hatred for the Jewish people. According to the working definition, hey, if we're allowed to make up definitions, then I'm anti-Semitic. Okay, if that's the game we're going to play, fine. I define anti-Semitism as supporting Israel going back to their land, which I believe is going to lead them away from the truth of Jesus Christ. You're the anti-Semite now. If we can just make up definitions for words, this is absolutely dumb and ridiculous, and I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it, and I expect it from the news media. I expect it from the Jews. I expect it from our government. I don't expect it from Christians. Shame on you for falling for this foolishness. So I hope this was helpful and insightful. And so help share, spread the word on this, and go out there and love the Jews and tell them about Jesus. Thank you all for watching. God bless. We'll see you all next time.